Hi, you're watching Hindustan Times, and I'm Aditi Prasad, and I am so delighted to bring to you yet another session with the Nature Conservation Foundation. As the world celebrated International Day of Women and Girls in Sciences earlier this month on February 11th, we bring you three women speakers and from three separate fields of wildlife to talk about the hurdles they face, the challenges they faced, the dreams they have, and the stories that they'd like to share with us. Now, these women have shattered stereotypes and paved the way for future generations in the profession in wildlife conservation. And today we explore, of course, their journeys, their triumphs, and their challenges. Let me introduce them. Shweta Shivkumar, she's a doctoral fellow at the Center for Wildlife Studies. Priyanka Swami, she's a PhD scholar at Mysore University, a program manager at the Kalinga Foundation, and we have Samakshi Tiwari, who's also a research fellow at the Mangrove Monitoring for Climate Change Mitigation in India. And of course, let me start with you straight away. Let's dive straight into it with Shweta Shivkumar. Shweta, I believe you have a presentation to share with us. Please go right ahead.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Uh, the presentation that I'm going to give is structured in such a way that I wish someone had told me when I had begun my journey in wildlife, because I started out extremely confused because I was passionate about wildlife. I loved wild animals and I never knew how I could make that into a career. And so I'm going to structure my presentation according to giving you exact details of what courses I took. And you can always email me, ask me if you require any guidance in being in this field, because we want more women in. And so I'm going to go right to it. I began my undergrad in microbiology, and this was because I knew I liked animals, and everybody around me said that having a degree in microbiology would give you much wider scope of trying to apply to something which could be in wildlife, zoology, something that could make you money, maybe biochemistry. And so I applied to microbiology, and it was in Mumbai in St. Xavier's College. It is an amazing college to be in, but I soon realized that microbiology is looking at everything which is microscopic, which is within the micro world. And I am much more interested in looking at things at the macro world, at that macro scale, and I feel more connected to them. And so I think I was caught looking outside the window at some bird, daydreaming, I think, by one of my first mentors. She was a teacher. She was a biochemistry teacher, Nandita ma'am. And she's like, "Girl, where are you looking at? Like, why aren't you paying attention in my class?" And that's when I realized that I actually want the world outside. And she's like, "Come, I'm going to talk to you after class. I know a bunch of people who you can talk to about how this could be a field." And that is when it began. And I think I spoke to a bunch of people who worked in the Northeast on bird communities, and that was when I had, and they were also women, by the way, and I had sort of an inkling of hope to think about how this can be a field that I can pursue. And so then I moved on to doing a degree in environmental science. And there was, at that time, I think there were very few courses in India which offered wildlife biology as a postgraduate degree. And they were extremely selective, and especially the ones I was aiming for, which were, one was in Dehradun and one is in Bangalore. And both of them I didn't get through. And since they were extremely competitive, I what I was thinking was I'll apply for a degree and then possibly apply the next year that I could do. But I ended up doing environmental science for both years at Mysore University in the Department of Environmental Science. And within Mysore University, I think I got a little bit of freeway, a little bit of free access to the forest department and all of the forests around Mysore. And that's when I actually got my foot on the ground, got to talk to the forest department about what projects I could do for my master's degree, and they guided me to something called a spot muzzle. It just looks like this. It's very unexciting. It's something that is at the back of a forest office in some steel cupboard that they keep. But what it represents is someone's livestock, which has been taken by a wild animal, or if someone actually has been injured by a wild animal, it's noted down here because they would have complained to the forest department and they would have gotten money to be able to get through this loss. And this was all explained to me in very shorthand by some very irritable forest officer, but then it got me excited. And so I went, spoke to around 18 people who've lost livestock. And I was actually expecting them to complain to me about how these wild animals are like being unruly and coming out, but that's not what they did. What they actually did was to talk to me about some naughty kid that come sometimes into their yard, and it sounded almost like they knew the leopard that was around in their area and they were like, I know, chastising it for doing something wrong. And this really intrigued me. I never saw a leopard in all of this. I never saw a leopard even once, but I saw the leopard through their eyes, and it got me thinking about how I can actually take this degree forward into actually doing something in wildlife. And so I did. I was fortunate enough to get into a diploma in University of Oxford, and this diploma is for me special because I got to meet people who did not actually have much of a background in wildlife. There were many people who were from engineering field, or there were people who they had not done biology, but because they had field experience, because they had projects that they could count within their experience, they were allowed to apply, and some of them even made it, and they were my classmates. And so we were taught everything from scratch. So we got the basics of things like statistics and field methods, and we got to do two projects all in a duration of 8 months, and it gave me like the correct introduction, and sort of it was my gateway into entering this field, and I took the plunge towards wildlife. And this also has scholarships if people are interested in applying, and they do give out scholarships to people in India. There have been many Indians who have gone to this course. So that's where it all began. I actually got into the field of wildlife. I think that is when I think back and say that's when I officially got in. And my first job was in Wildlife Conservation Society India, where I got to work with Dr. Vidya Atreya, who works on leopards. We did a project in Himachal Pradesh for almost 4 to 5 years. I was in Himachal. Almost the same kind of interactions that I witnessed during my masters, I saw in Himachal, but much more amplified because I got to live with the people there and got to know how they think about the wildlife in their area, especially the leopards. And through our research there, we also got to know about the what they eat. So we used to collect their scats. So right bottom picture of mine is where I'm collecting poop of leopard to try. That's when we find out what the animal is eating, and the top picture is where we're setting up cameras. And through these cameras, we actually find out. We did a project and we found out that there were actually 8 leopards, 8 to 10 leopards within the city of Shimla, which is like a big tourist destination, and it still had 8 leopards, and people knew about it. The local residents knew about it, so it's common knowledge there. I also spoke to people who've lost their family members, and unlike livestock, family members is a whole other ball game because it teaches you how to be around loss, and this is very personal loss. And despite all of this loss, the people were still having a relationship with the leopard other than saying let's kill it and take it away. And that is a huge learning for me during this whole time. And I got to be I don't know, in Himachal. If you've had the fortune of going there, I bet you have. There people there really take you in. So I got to be their daughter, their bua, some kids bua. I mean, met these people for 3 years, and I got to be all of these to people who had lost livestock or family members to leopards, and that was huge. I did manage to see one leopard. That was my first leopard, but that's it. It was mostly people. So this is one of the iconic photos we took in that project, where the gentleman in the right was the one who told us to put cameras in his front yard and told us that, yeah, you will find leopards here. I know, he just passes here every day. And he had actually called us up and said, yesterday the leopard came, your camera would have had photo, please come check. And that's him holding the photo. We gifted it to him. That's his grandson who lives with him, and they're still not afraid of the leopard in their backyard. And these are the kind of people I got to meet through my project. I also did one project within WCS India on elephants. This was in the state of Kerala, where we had to interview people who had lost livestock, sorry, for me, everything is livestock. They had lost crops to elephants coming into their cropland and taking it away. So we had gone and talked to them about what time it had come and several details that were collected from the whole state of Kerala. I think we managed to do half. I was part of that project. And then to move on, I actually started to do my PhD. I had all of this data that I had collected in Himachal that I had to do something, uh, uh, I don't know, something with it. And what I wanted to do was to have a policy end to it. And I didn't entirely know how to analyze the data I had. So to learn that, to add to knowledge on wildlife, I started my PhD with the Center for Wildlife Studies. I developed whatever ideas I had gotten in Himachal, and then we got a really better idea of what could be done, given whatever we had seen, what could be done to improve the situation of conflict. And the top left is leopard's cat. That's what we call poop, leopard's cat. And that's perfect example of a leopard's cat, because it's really midway between getting dry. And the bottom is what the pug mark of a leopard looks like. Top right is very interesting. It's actually a dog. In case you were fooled by it, it's how people protect their dogs from leopards. Sometimes they paint it with mehendi. Bottom right is us interviewing people who had lost their child to a leopard. So, what up in the future? There are several options. Actually, you don't really have to go into research if you that's not your cup of tea. And so, I think for me, what I want to do up ahead is to get into more on ground ecology work, or try to get into applied conservation programs, which is to see if I can, whatever data I've collected and research that I have done, if I can try to develop policy on it, try to talk to, do awareness programs about the work that we have done so far, and try to communicate it to people who require this information. I mean, they are the people who are living with the leopard every day, right? And so I think they have a right to know how best they could not, like how best they could stay safe. They already know it, but there are some people who um, could require our help, maybe. And I would want to be there for that change. So, this is the landscape that I worked in. I would love to go back. You're all invited. And if you want to chat, you want to have any conversations about careers in wildlife, please do email me. This is my email. And I look forward to listening to your stories as well. And thanks.
Thanks, Shweta. That was very insightful, and that was her email ID. Viewers, Shweta, you can say it out again because the slide has been removed from the thing. Right? That's En
Yeah.
Wish Envy Shweta, short for environmental, Envy Shweta at
Yeah.
gmail.com. So it can also be that you think that people are envious of you because you're in
No.
such a lovely, very offbeat and a very fascinating, journey. So, what do you think the highlight of your career so far, or your foray into wildlife conservation? What's the highlight of that so far for you?
I think it would be the people. We actually, the camera trapping survey in Shimla, got us, we went all gung-ho about how like we can get proof to the world that even cities have leopards and all of that. The people already knew, and the people
Right.
who live with these animals, they already know how to live with these animals. And if they don't really require us, but they require us to tell their stories to the world, to say that that exists. And at some stage, I think that changed the way I looked at wildlife as a field. And it didn't matter to them I was a woman or not. I don't think it matters. uh, at that stage, that helped me get the confidence to stay on and tell their stories when I could. Yeah, that was my changing moment. Aditi, I think you're muted.
That's very fascinating, and I'm hoping that our viewers take more, take some examples from your life and take your life story and sort of tread on their own wildlife conservation path from here on. Priyanka Swami is the person that is the wildlife, female that we're going to go to next. A person, she's a PhD scholar, as I said, from Mysore University, and a program manager with the Kalinga Foundation. Priyanka, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alti and Shweta. That was amazing. I really wish I had someone or I had that much confidence to go through that so many courses, or like I knew where to go to. I think that's where it all starts. I don't come from a very like solid ecology or wildlife background. So I'm basically a lab rat. That's how it all started for me. I used to spend more time in the lab. I have been part of the project where I have described like species of frogs or lizards or even snakes without even seeing them, because I was given only the tissue samples. So that always was in my mind. And yes, the whole idea was exciting, like to be on field, right? So I have spent most of my time. I used to spend most of my time in the lab, but that flavor, I mean, like that idea of being on field, it's all started like when I saw this snake in the wild for the first time. um, I happen to be part of the project, my as a lab intern, as I showed in the previous slide, in Indian Institute of Science in Karthik Shankar's lab. And as a part of that, I was I was working on frog project initially, and I happened to jump on board for another project, which was like King Cobra project, which was led by Gauri Shankar, who was like leading king cobra biologist right now in the world. And I happened to see this fellow in the wild for the first time, probably my first snake ever, and it just like fascinated me. And that was the first time that spark, and or like rather the confidence that, you know what, I can do something in this field, or like maybe that confidence also started from there. And my first field work happened to be in Mizoram. I'm a typical concrete jungle girl. I never had like since my childhood story like where I can say that, my granny was influencing. I played in the backyard, or I visited forest regularly. So initially, like my first field work was like I happened to move from the concrete jungle. I was in the lab, and all of a sudden I was in Mizoram to collect like field samples for king cobras for the work. And there I happened to meet, or I could understand how intense and exciting at the same time the whole field work is. And I'm working on this all of a sudden, from frogs to lizards to the samples which I could see only in the wilds. All of a sudden I'm on this field where I'm just working on the longest like venomous snake in the world. And that was like quite exciting, right? And I happened to be as a part of this field work. Even though it was my first, I met incredible people, especially we were working with local people, and the kind of response that you get whenever you're on field is amazing. And we had to trek in this particular picture, like I'll show you like video ahead, where we trekked like almost 2.5 hours like one way to reach like one spot where king cobra was. And then like this idea of like discussing, strategizing, like we have to space people in different locations, because it's it's the biggest snake that, I mean, you can definitely see when it's moving around. So there were like 8 people who were deployed in different locations after 40 minutes of discussion. And as you can see, and this is the whole team which was with us, and I was the only girl in the entire team, and this is what happened. You see the king cobra there, and like people, 8 people like who are looking at it. The whole idea was like, nudge it, we'll catch it, we are done with it. We'll collect the ventral scales, and we are done with it. And like as soon as somebody touched it, like the whole, like, it just like vanished. It's just like how you see in this video. The whole situation was blurred. 2.5, 3.5 hours of trek and 40 minutes of planning, and nothing happened. And it was just like it kind of just cuts you down, because field work is like, it doesn't go as you plan most of the time. And it was very exciting, the whole process of the whole idea of um, being part of the process, right from planning to initiating to executing. And sometimes you get something and sometimes you don't get anything. So that's when I realized, what, maybe I should think about being on field, because this is where, this is what I like to do more rather than like molecular work. and and I also happened to meet these people in the remotest part of Mizoram. And you can see in this picture, I'm the only girl. And they were like confused, like, why, like, what happened, like, why is this girl have come all the way from there, and like she can have like any job like she wants, but she's here to catch a king cobra along with all these guys. But the amount of respect that you get from these people as soon as you say that you are a researcher, you're here to learn something. And I think I have never got that from even city folks. Most of the time they always question, like, why are you doing this, like, how can you do this? And they always have this question mark, and they kind of just judge you. But these people, like, I think the most sweetest people are people in these remote places. And the kind of they welcome you to be part of the community is amazing. And that's another reason why, like, I always like to go back and work in these remote places and with close to the community people. And as part of the project, I have worked in India, like in many in many parts where I had trained many researchers or rescuers to collect the samples. And I also happened to go to Thailand at one point of time. And this is where the whole spark, like, that fire or the whole idea started brewing in my mind, that, what, I can do something on field, or like I can pick up a field project. And all these people that you see in this photo are like incredible, and there was something new that I was exposed to, apart from the molecular work that I was learning in IAC and the projects that I was part of. And all of them were tracking each at least one of the snakes which is found there in their field site. And I was like, this can happen in India. But I didn't have the confidence to make it happen. But over a period of time, with a lot of brainstorming, I can very proudly say that, along with Kalinga Foundation, the project happened. And that's how the Pit Viper project started. Even though India has close to 355 species of snakes and like 75 venomous snake species, we have, and which contributes, and we are like snake bite capital. We have like 60,000 people die because of snake bite like every year. And this big four are responsible for it. I know this big four snakes, which contributes more to that particular number. And the pit vipers belong to that fourth and fifth position. WHO has declared snakebite as a tropical disease. And I was very much interested in, because pit vipers are also endemic to Western Ghats. And there are a lot of factors that we consider when we say, like, they are the big four contributes to the snakebite. And they are part, even though of all the pit viper species that you see, they have the largest distribution. That means that the encountering is also higher. In search of that, like, pit vipers actually come in different color morphs. They come in green, they come in brown, they come in yellow and orange, but still they camouflage very well, and you can't just notice them whenever you are around. But people who are affected by this bites, like pit viper bites, are mostly the plantation workers or the coffee who work in coffee plantations, or like, other laborers. And even though it might not be fatal, the reactivity level is going to be very less, depending on the individual. You definitely have, since they are hemotoxic in nature, you'll definitely have a renal complications at a later part of life. And understanding their ecology, right? So where they are, how they are active, like when they are active, kind of just helps us in reducing this conflict issues. So that's why we thought that, like learning, working on pit vipers, and that's how the whole idea, I mean, the project just happened. We in search of that, I am in rainforest, like the field work happens in the rainforest, and this is actually my field station, where I'm working and where I'm tracking snakes. We usually, what we do is like we go look for the spit vipers in this rainforest, and then we bring them back to the field site, and then we operate, then we deploy these transmitters. And I have a very good team which helps me in executing this whole project. I have like dedicated team, like a team person like who's interested and who has experience in this field, like Gauri, and then Prashant, who helps me with like logistics, and then like the entire team of like interns who help me with the tracking them like day and night, and a dedicated vet who comes all the way from Bangalore to just to operate on this snake for like few minutes. And we use this radio transmitter device to insert, and insert, once we put them to sleep, we insert this radio transmitter device, and we release them back into the wild. Like, and then we also measure them with to take their like body length or body weight measurements, to just keep a track of their health over a period of days or months. And once that happens, we release them back and we track them in the wild for during the day and during the night. The challenging part for us who are in the field, like, is especially in Agumbe, is the landscape and the amount of rainfall that we receive every day. And we also share a lot of space with leopards and gores. Of course, for us, it's like very, very exciting, and that's why we go back again and again. And our day actually starts in the night, because pit vipers are nocturnal in nature. We have to spend a lot of our time only during the night time. Though, in like, since the project started, we have documented and we have collected a lot of data, interesting data related to the pit vipers. Because it's a PhD project, like I'm still in the analysis phase, I'm not able to like give you the proper results. Maybe in the coming days, I guess. Apart from research, I'm also interested in outreach. I have also trained and worked with kids and different stakeholders, whoever is interested in reptile management. And I can, at the end, I can definitely say that if somebody like me can do it, and I think everybody can do it, right? So please, I mean, I just welcome everybody, especially women in this field who are interested. Please always reach out. If you want to work on snakes, if you like snakes or any reptiles, we are always there to, I mean, I'll always welcome your queries.
Okay, that's very fascinating. In fact, that's very fascinating. In fact, I'm sorry, just give me a moment. But I personally am very, very scared of snakes. So people who have snake phobia, probably I'm one of those. So all those pictures on the screen really got to me for a moment. But I am so, I'm so in awe for you for seeing a snake for the first time and getting fascinated by it so much that you sort of working with them on the field, trying to see them. And I mean, for me, that's all very scary, but all kudos to you, of course. And let's come to our third, wildlife flag bearer, female flag bearer for the wildlife conservation, who we have with us today. Samakshi, please go ahead with your journey and your story.
Thank you, Aditi. Thank you for the introduction. And very exciting presentations by both Priyanka and Shweta. And I can surely relate to you at certain levels, as you'll find out. So, to talk about my journey in wildlife, I have to talk a bit about my childhood. So, growing up, I was madly fascinated by reptiles and snakes. I used to watch these shows that have these explorers travel to Amazon, Africa, Australia, look for large pythons and anacondas and find huge crocodiles. And though now if I see a snake on field, I will not get close to it, unlike Priyanka. I might take pictures, but from a distance. But back then, in my head, I was a professional snake rescuer and the best snake handler ever. And we were living in Masuri when I was in class fourth, and we suddenly shifted to Mumbai, and that was one of the biggest shocks ever because Masuri was this pure green, quiet, beautiful place, and suddenly when I was in Mumbai, it was polluted, it was noisy, it didn't have enough green cover, and that is when I started aching to go back to nature and live in a place that is surrounded by trees, has enough green cover, and I especially missed the Himalayas. But somewhere while growing up, my this inclination towards nature got a little subdued, and I don't think I even spoke about wildlife sciences in the later years of my school life. But in college, I joined the photography club of my college, and I naturally gravitated a lot towards bird photography and nature photography. And by the end of my first year, I decided to pursue research in birds. So initially, my research work was very much based on working on existing data sets and doing some basic observations about birds, their behavior, or a few checklists about birds and trees. But for my master's thesis, I went to Dehradun, which is in the foothills of Himalayas, and there I worked on bird diversity and vegetation, and I learned how birds can be conserved in urban areas. So that was my introduction to real field work, traveling to different sites across Dehradun for work. Early morning Dehradun is it's very hard on the body, especially when you're on field. But this adventure was very exciting, and I felt I am getting close to the Himalayas. And 1 year after that, I had the privilege of returning to Himachal, and I worked in the Cheer Pheasant Reintroduction Program by the Forest Department at Himachal, and I got to live in the most beautiful place ever, which is Seri village. You can see the picture on the left. That is the village where I stayed, and I have taken this picture from my site. So just like Shweta, I was completely taken aback by how beautiful the Himalayas were. And there I worked and lived with the local community in a village. And Bui is the word that was used in the village where I stayed, just like Bua was maybe used around Shweta. And Cheer pheasant is the species I was working on. You can see a picture of that at the bottom right. And this is a bird that is found only in grasslands of the Himalayas, and its population has been declining. So the forest department and the local community is trying to reintroduce it in selected patches of grasslands. While working here, there are two things that I realized, one about me and one about conservation in general. About conservation is that no conservation is possible at all without local communities. That does not happen. It cannot work. And you have to integrate local communities in whatever management that you do of ecosystems. I firmly believe that. And the second thing that I learned about myself is that by that time I had become more interested in understanding ecosystems and not just birds or singular species. So there I started learning a bit about grasslands, and then currently I joined my organization, which is called Siforicraft, at the Mangrove Monitoring for India project. So here we are understanding how different mangroves are vulnerable to climate change, and we are measuring different things about different mangrove ecosystems like Sundarbans, like Koringa, wherein we are understanding what are the changes in salinity, what are the changes in tides, how much sedimentation, which is how much deposition of soil is happening at the mangrove areas, and we're trying to understand if this will be able to counter the rise in sea level that is happening because of global warming and rising temperatures. So this is basically what we're doing. Just like Shweta, just like Priyanka, this team of mine and the previous team at Himachal was all men but me. But we'll come to that a little later maybe. And luckily, I have had the privilege of working on field, and I love being on field. That is my motivation for being in this profession. But this also comes with its own set of challenges, and I think research in general, it is difficult, it's very consuming. It is not as well paying as most other professions that require the same level of commitment, and it is very risky. The work that I have done along with a very good team at Siforicraft is when we worked at Sundarbans, we were clearly told that what we are doing is a suicide mission, because we'll be working in areas full of crocodiles and in tiger territory. And it has happened that we would enter a patch and we would find tiger pug marks exactly where we would be installing our equipment. So we would do things very quickly over there. And I've also worked for a short period of time, for the time at which I worked in Himachal, which was 2 years. We used to monitor the birds that we had released. So we had to trek on different trails, and some of the trails that we were taking were actually trails on which people had slipped, fallen, and died. And we were exactly using these trails for monitoring the birds we had released every single day. So this is not something very unique to the kind of fieldwork I'm doing. Everybody who's working on field is facing something like this in some way or the other. And as women, given the theme of the talk, I think we do have an extra layer of challenges. I would say that sometimes opportunities are a little less. Some projects, some people do not want to hire women. Luckily, me and I'm sure other people on the panel have been lucky to find recruiters that do not think that women cannot be on field. We are a little more vulnerable, especially in the sexual context when we work in remote areas. And I would be lying if I said that, and this will sound very critical, politically incorrect, but I would be lying if I said that it's 2024, so there is no sexism. There is. It's quite apparent. And there are some places where people are still coming to terms with the fact that women are working on field, they're earning, and they're telling people what to do. And Shweta, Priyanka, and I have not met in person, but I'm sure if we do, we will have a lot to vent and rant about. And but these are the challenges we have, and we have no choice but to face them. And I firmly believe that the kind of peer groups we have can really help us deal with some of these challenges, at least mentally. And for that, I have a very, very supportive group of female friends. Some of them are watching the talk already, and I also have some seniors that I really look up to and call them whenever I'm stressed or in trouble. And I also have a group of very, very good male friends and my colleagues, which are all men at the moment. Some of them are also watching this talk where women are talking about women in wildlife. So I do extract a great level of camaraderie from these people. And I think I have been very, very lucky to work in such teams. And I very, very strongly believe that as more and more women will join this field, this issue of gender disparity might reduce. And with time, maybe in a couple of decades to come, we won't really need such talks based on a particular gender. But till then, I think such talks function as a very, very good mode to spread awareness and let other women know that this field, though challenging, is definitely open for them too. So if anybody would like to write to me, please, you're more than welcome. I love talking about my work and conservation and wildlife in general. Thank you, Aditi, and thank you to Nitin, Emmy from NCF, and you for organizing and managing all of this.
Okay, Samakshi, that's very fascinating, and you're working in very diverse ecosystems, landscapes, and as you pointed out, sometimes very dangerous. And being a woman in these places, as you pointed out, is slightly more challenging for people to accept, for people to, I mean, and those kind of gender disparities perhaps exist in almost every profession, every field, and normally most women like Priyanka, Shweta didn't talk about it to that extent, but I think you sort of brought it out in a very candid way, the kind of problems they face. Priyanka, Shweta, have you guys also faced any such challenges on the field? Do you also feel similarly? Priyanka, you can go first.
Right. Yes. As I mean, thank you so much, Samakshi. I think that was amazing. As Aditi pointed out, yes, we didn't, but very candid way, very subtle way that you put it out there was amazing. And now
I
I'm
had to
thinking
be.
like, damn, I should have. But yes, it is there. It's definitely there. But we do have solutions. There's a lot of inclusivity right now. Like people are coming up, and men are like speaking up for, and giving that opportunity for women. They want us to come and work. They come and they reach out. There is solution. I know, like especially for a lot of youngsters who wants women, who the girls who wants to come to this field. um, there are challenges, as you said, in every field it is there, but yes, we have to make it happen. If there is this thin crust and there's this like thick crust. So it depends on how strong we are and break it. So it all depends on our tenacity. I think it's possible. It's definitely challenging in a way, but I am lucky in a lot of ways. Just like Samakshi, that I have a lot of male colleagues who kind of just encourage and then just keep coming back and asking us for it. Kind of just boosts our confidence and makes us feel that we are part of the team. You don't have to treat us in a very differently.
Visual way. Yeah.
Yes, in a special way, but we want to be, as long as you make us feel that we are part of it, I think that product, that itself speaks a lot. I think that's what at this point of time is very much required.
Shweta, anecdotes that you remember that would speak to um, this problem? I wouldn't even call it a problem. I'd say it's a challenge, uh, being fast overcome by women like you. But because we're talking about women in life.
So for me, it's almost like it has progressed. And I know maybe like 20 years, I've had the fortune of working with women mentors. Both my bosses they are women. And so they worked in their time where it was much harder and like gotten through this field. And so for me, it was almost like they paved the way and I'm following it. And so I've got like a treasure trove of advice, certain anecdotes from them. But for me, two things. One is it's the way you react to all of these situations, right? You will face, I think, any woman in her field is going to face all sorts of all sorts of challenges. And so humor went a long way for me in laughing it off at that situation. The more you take it to heart, the more you're going to take it as a hurdle and sit where you are. And so for me, humor with the person who was actually not being nice to me went a long way for me. And the project went ahead because of that. So one is humor. The second is other male colleagues. I think I've worked with politicians, forest department, with local communities, and in all spheres there are good people and bad people, and how they treat women is very different. So the good people have always gotten me through any situation that I saw as a hurdle. So two things kept me grounded, and I think if you find those two things, you're going to get ahead. Yeah.
So the good people always get you through all the bad people that you come across, and that's true. Truly, that's true because there's more good than bad in the world. Depends on which one you would like to look at. Is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? But thanks so much for joining us, all three of you, and thanks for sharing your challenges, your journey, your stories, and hopefully you've inspired a bunch of our viewers who sort of joined us on various platforms, and we hope to keep meeting more warriors like you, environment warriors, as we go forward into 2024. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Aditi. Thank you.